Hey everyone, it's Nadine from Nadine Walks, and I am out on a walk right now. So it is a really kind of beautiful, mild day in February, and around where I live, this is the middle of winter, and so I thought it was the perfect opportunity to head out after work and go on a walk, kind of try to beat the setting sun. I should have just enough time to do my favorite loop in my favorite park. This is the park where I train before my first Camino, and I come here and I hike all the time. So I wanted to spend a few minutes today just to talk about training actually before a Camino. And it's a question that I've gotten kind of on and off over the years. Should I train for a Camino? How do I train? What do you recommend? So I think this question is it's a good one, but the answer really depends on so many different factors. And I wish I could say that there is a one-size-fits-all training plan for the Camino de Santiago, but there's really not. It depends on so many different factors. That being said, I do have just a few ideas and tips that I thought I could share with you. I really do like training before I head out on a Camino. I don't always train a lot anymore, and I think it's because I've gotten a little more experienced on the Camino. I kind of know what I can do. I'm more comfortable kind of heading out without too much training beforehand. But before my first Camino, I trained a ton. I was out walking, hiking as much as I could. I think, some of that was I was really nervous to walk the Camino. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it. So I wanted to be as prepared as possible. That's how I kind of went into it. Not everyone is going to do that. So to kind of answer the very first question, do I need to train for the Camino? The answer is actually no, you don't need to. Again, most people probably will want to do a little bit of training, but there are an awful lot of people who just head out on the Camino and they say they kind of get their training once they're already there. I do think though, if you're not going to do any training before a Camino, you're probably going to want to keep your stages a little bit shorter in the beginning. And on a more popular Camino route, this is going to be possible because there are more places to stay. So you might not want to start with really big stages if you haven't done any training. And again, you could, but you're probably going to feel it a little more in your body. So just know if you don't do any training before your Camino, the first week, 10 days are probably going to feel a little tough. You might be tired. You might really be feeling it. It's one reason I do like to do some training before a Camino so that I can just kind of jump in and enjoy it a little bit more from the get-go. But you really don't have to train before a Camino. This video, though, we are going to be talking about training. And I think I'm getting a little cold, so I'm going to get up and kind of talk a little bit as I walk. We'll see how long this lasts. I might have to stop a little later because the path I'm on right now has got some rocks and roots. It's not totally flat. So I'll kind of talk about that in a minute because that is one of my tips when training for the Camino is that you want to walk on some uneven ground. But I'm getting ahead of myself. All right, I've been trying to take these videos as I'm walking and I decided that I'm getting way too distracted, so I can probably get this done a little faster if I stand still. So let's say you decide to train for the Camino. So it all depends if you're starting from kind of a place of very little physical activity or not much physical activity in your day, or if you're already pretty physically active. So I would say if you're starting with not walking much at all, just start off kind of slow. I would say take, a couple days a week, try to get out there for 15, 20 minutes. But what I would do is keep increasing that time or distance. So if you start at kind of 15 minutes a couple days a week, next week try to bump it up to 20 minutes, then 30 minutes. And I would say try to increase to be walking most days a week and get to a place where you can be walking maybe even up to an hour a day, hour and a half a day, most days out of the week. So again, it's going to depend on how much time you have before you're heading out on the Camino. I think, again, if you only really have a month, then I would say, again, listen to your body. Don't jump in too fast, but try to get out and go on a walk most days of the week. I think consistency is probably, for me, one of the biggest things here, that you want to just get in the habit of going on daily walks, and you want your body to start getting used to that. So I think if you worked up to going on a walk for about an hour a day, most days of the week, from here, it kind of depends on a few different factors. So I know not everyone has the time in their day, especially if they're working, if they have a family, just with kind of regular life duties, responsibilities. Not everyone has the time to try to increase that to walking 2 hours a day most days of the week. So if you do have that time, that's a good goal to go after, right? So increase your distance, increase the amount of time that you're walking. If you can get up to a couple hours, that'd be great. If you can get to, if we're thinking in terms of distance, like 4 miles, 5 miles, 6 miles, most days of the week, that would be wonderful. That was kind of the place that I was at before my first Camino. I kind of worked up to that. Most days, I think I was going on a 6 mile walk or a 6 mile hike. And on the weekends then, I would aim to go on an even longer walk or hike. And so I think if you can't manage to kind of get out for much more than an hour most days, don't worry about it too much, but find the days when, whether it's a weekend, a day you have off, when you have a little more time, and really try to incorporate some longer walks and hikes on those days. And personally, before my first Camino, I really wanted to work up to walking about 12 or 15 miles. And, I wasn't doing this like consistently. I probably just worked up to that point, and maybe I had a month before my first Camino and was doing some days of that distance. Okay, I'm going to stop walking. You can tell I haven't been training because I'm out of breath and I've just been kind of walking on a flat path, but I think walking and talking, I don't know, I'm not used to it. So on a weekend, I was trying to get to about 12 to 15 miles to kind of see how that felt on my body. And I think with all the regular walking, I think throwing in a few longer hikes was a good idea. And what I tried to do right before I left out for the Camino, maybe a couple weeks before I left, I did back-to-back hikes of about 12 miles just to see how my body would feel with a couple consecutive days of, longer amount of time walking and hiking. I also loaded up the backpack that I was going to take on the Camino, and I started wearing that on my training walks and my training hikes. So just like walking, where you want to start slow and kind of add distance or add amount of time, with the pack, I also really think you don't want to load it up and, start carrying 20 pounds on your back from the get-go. You can if you want to, but I grabbed a couple heavy books from my bookshelf, put them in my pack. I grabbed some canned beans and put them in there. So I just kind of loaded up my pack so that I started to get used to carrying some weight. And then as I started to acquire all my gear for the Camino, I started to actually kind of fill my pack with my gear so that before my Camino, a few weeks before, I pretty much had all my stuff and I practiced with it in my pack. So that gave me the advantage also of figuring out how to pack my things and arrange them in my pack so that it was comfortable for me. But I also kind of got used to knowing exactly how heavy my pack was going to be as I walked the Camino. So I would say that that's the other kind of goal if you're going to be training for the Camino, to really build up to walking longer distances, get your body used to the walk, and also train with a little weight on your back. And then if possible, I'd also recommend walking on kind of different types of terrain. So there's going to be some kind of pavement walking on the Camino. So if you want to do some loops around your neighborhood, kind of on the street or sidewalk, that's probably going to be good because you're going to be walking on that kind of surface a little bit. But you also, if you can, it's great to hike on some uneven terrain. So like this path through the woods, where you might be walking in mud a little bit or over some rocks or some roots. It's just good to kind of get that practice. I would also say that if you can incorporate any hills, inclines, declines into your practice walks, that'd be great too. So I know some people live in very flat areas, so it's really hard to be able to do that. This park I'm in, I love it because it's got some flat walking. It's got a big paved trail. It's got the trails through the woods, but it's also got hills. So I really have a lot of variety here. So I'm able to kind of get all of that when I go out on a practice hike here. But if you live in an area that's pretty flat, I would just say, try to find some stairs wherever you can. Some people will go to a local stadium and go up and down the stairs. Some people have gone to parking garages. So if you can find some stairs close to where you live, then it's great to get that training in. I would say if you can't, don't worry about it too much. Again, training on hills is going to help. But just like we said kind of at the beginning, not everyone trains for a Camino, and you're going to be fine if you're not able to train on a lot of hills. I would also say another tip could be to train in different kinds of weather. So again, this isn't so necessary, but it's not a bad idea to go on a couple practice walks, maybe when it's raining. I really don't like walking in the rain, so I don't intentionally seek out my training hikes on days where the weather's not so good, but I have walked in the rain. And before my first Camino, I started as I was carrying a lot of my stuff with me. I got caught in pretty intense rainstorm, but it gave me an opportunity to like kind of take out my raincoat and just see how that worked. And just again, like practice with the gear that I had bought for the Camino. And you know, some days on the Camino, you are going to be walking in the rain or in not super ideal conditions. So it can be helpful to just, you know, get a little bit of training in some different conditions. Practice a bit in the shoes that you're going to wear on the Camino. Be careful not to overtrain in them because you don't want to wear them out too much because you need them for the Camino. But I would definitely say make sure your shoes are broken in, they're comfortable, they're not going to cause blisters right away. Make sure you like your socks. I think that can be kind of important. And I would also say that it could be important to do some stretching. Some people do some weight training. I don't focus on these areas as much. So again, this is where I'm not going to be an expert and be able to give you good tips. I really, when I've trained, just focused on the walking and the hiking. But I do think stretching is probably really important. It's something that I am now kind of incorporating more into my training. And I'm just kind of starting with yoga. But I have found that, especially in the last couple of years, my body has definitely benefited when I've tried to stretch a little bit more before my walk, after the walk. So I'm trying to just incorporate that kind of into my daily routine a little bit more generally so that hopefully my body will be just a little more ready to hit the Camino once I'm there. So those were some training tips. I know this was a little all over the place, especially because I'm out walking and I'm a little distracted. I've been starting and stopping this video a lot and just kind of generally telling you what I did to train. But I think there's a lot of good information online. I think there are different kinds of training plans. So if you're someone who really wants to follow like a really like set schedule, I would just do a little searching online to see what you can find. Mostly though, my advice is to not start off, you know, too big or too strong. Be mindful of your body, but just try to increase like distances and time each week, and then hike with some weight in your pack so that your body kind of knows what to expect once you get on the Camino. Okay, since I've stopped, I'm getting a little chilly and I've got a lot of my hike to go and the sun is kind of dropping in the sky. So I better get going, but it's great to be here. It's great to be back outside and recording a video. I'll be back soon with more information for all of you. Buen Camino. And I forgot one more tip I wanted to say is that if you have a local Camino group where you live, I know some countries do. Here in the States, we have American Pilgrims on the Camino, and I have a local chapter that I'm part of, and I do a lot of training hikes with them in my Camino off season, and it is a great motivator, especially for the winter months, to kind of get myself outside and on different trails kind of all around my area. It's also just such a wonderful opportunity to be with other people who have hiked a Camino, walked a Camino, who are planning one, to just talk about it all, to get some ideas and tips and advice. So I would definitely recommend looking up if you have any local Camino groups around where you live. And if you do, consider joining them for a walk. Okay, that's really it. Buen Camino.